They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. The one I saw was worth 12 years of marriage, my entire family, and the $2 million home I thought was mine. My husband thought he was starting a new life. He did not realize he had just handed me the detailed blueprint for his own destruction. My name is Eliza Grant. I am 42 years old, and I am, by all accounts, a successful woman. As a senior project manager at Innovate Solutions, I manage multi-million-dollar tech integrations before my first coffee of the day. My office in downtown Denver is a space of clean lines and predictable outcomes. I left it 3 hours early today, a rare indulgence, clutching a bottle of champagne that cost more than my first car. The bottle was a Dom Perignon, vintage 2012. It felt cool and smooth against my palm, a heavy, promising weight. I was going to surprise my husband. Mark, at 44, had always been the dreamer to my planner. His Grant consulting firm had been a scrappy, volatile thing for years, lurching from near bankruptcy to minor successes. But 6 months ago, he had landed a huge client, or so he said. He had been working tirelessly, his energy renewed. He told me he was finally expanding. He was moving the business out of our home office and into a real, legitimate space in one of the new glass and steel towers that had shot up on 17th Street. I was so proud. I had shouldered our finances for 12 years, my steady corporate salary funding his ambitions, paying the mortgage on the house my grandmother left me, and covering his not infrequent business development trips. Now, he was finally standing on his own. He had made it. We had made it. The lobby of the Ashford building was a cathedral of wealth. The marble floors gleamed, reflecting a massive, abstract bronze sculpture that probably cost more than our house. The air was silent, smelling faintly of lemon oil and money. I felt a sudden pang of self-consciousness. My navy blue worksuit and practical heels, perfectly appropriate for my own office, felt rumpled and inadequate here. I clutched the champagne bottle, the green-foiled cork brushing my knuckles. A sleek, black digital directory was set into the marble wall. I scanned the glowing names, searching for G. My finger hovered over the screen. Grant Consulting. It should be right there. It was not. My heart gave a stupid, fluttering lurch. Maybe he was not in yet. Maybe the directory was not updated. I scrolled again, slower this time, and I saw it. Grant Vance Strategies, Suite 3500. My blood did not run cold. It stopped. It just ceased to move. Vance. The name echoed in the sterile silence of my mind. Vance. As in Serena Vance. The 28-year-old intern he had hired 6 months ago. The one with the blindingly white teeth and the public Instagram account full of yoga poses and brunch cocktails. Mark had said she was a digital native who was revolutionizing his outreach. I had thought she was just a child. I stood there, frozen, the weight of the champagne bottle pulling at my arm. People in sharp suits glided past me, their reflections mixing with mine on the polished floor. I must have looked like a statue. As I stared, unable to compute, the digital directory screen flickered. It changed from the alphabetical list to a rotating slide of announcements. The first was about the building's new in-house coffee bar. The second was a welcome. Congratulations and welcome to our newest tenants. The screen was filled with a photograph. It was not a professional headshot. It was a candid, taken at what looked like a party. There, in the center, was Mark. My Mark. He was wearing his best blue suit, the one I bought him for our 10th anniversary. He was beaming, his face flushed with triumph, and holding his hand, her fingers laced tightly with his, was Serena Vance. She was wearing a white dress. Together. They were holding a comically large pair of scissors, about to cut a massive red ribbon stretched across an office doorway. It was a nightmare, a waking, fluorescent-lit nightmare. But that was not the worst part. The detail that made the air rush from my lungs, that made the marble floor seem to fall away, was the background. It was the people standing behind them, They were all raising glasses of champagne, their faces blurred but unmistakable. My mother, her mouth open in a delighted smile. My father, his arm around her, lifting his glass high. And my sister, Megan, standing right next to Serena, grinning, her eyes shining with celebration. All of them, my entire family. They were all there, smiling, applauding, celebrating a launch party that I knew nothing about, a launch party for a new business, a new partnership, a new life. The bottle in my hand was no longer a celebration. It was an anchor. It felt impossibly heavy, its chill seeping into my skin, a dead, leaden weight. The betrayal was not a single crack. It was a complete, structural collapse. It was absolute. I made it back to my Audi in the underground garage. I do not remember the elevator ride down. I sat in the driver's seat, the key fob cold in my hand. The Dom Perignon was on the passenger seat, a silent, mocking passenger. I did not cry. Crying is an emotional response, and the part of my brain that handles emotion had been vaporized. What was left was the project manager, the analyst, the part of me that looks at a catastrophic failure and begins to draft the post-mortem. My hands were perfectly steady. I unlocked my phone and opened our joint banking app. I scrolled and scrolled. For 12 years, I had let Mark handle the day-to-day finances of his business, trusting him. My salary covered our life. His revenue was for his business. Now, I saw the truth. The withdrawals were massive. $10,000 here, $25,000 there, over and over. Each one was meticulously labeled biz expense or consulting fee. I had seen them, registered them vaguely, and trusted him. I never once asked what business expense cost $25,000. I was too busy managing my own projects, earning the money he was spending. I thought about the trip he was on right now. He had left an itinerary on the kitchen counter this morning, a deliberate, casual gesture. Aspen trip, babe, networking, back in 3 days. I closed the banking app. I opened Instagram. Serena Vance. Her profile was, of course, public. The top of her feed was a story, posted 2 hours ago, a video of snow-covered mountains, taken from the window of a ski chalet. The next story, a pair of champagne glasses in front of a roaring stone fireplace. Then, the grid, photos of her in a brand new, bright pink ski suit, posing on a slope. Her arm in arm with other people at an opera ski bar, and the hashtags punched into my gut one by one. New beginnings. Blessed. Aspen life. He was not just networking. He was on vacation with his partner. My family was with them. They were all in Aspen, spending my money. The final piece clicked into place. An email. I had seen it 2 days ago. A routine notification from our mortgage bank. I almost deleted it. I had ignored it because I was busy, and because I thought, foolishly, that we had paid off the house years ago. My grandmother's house. The one she left to me, and only me. The beautiful, solid brick Tudor I grew up in. The one I had stupidly added Mark's name to a decade ago when we refinanced to build the new kitchen. It makes the paperwork easier. Honey, he had said. We're a team. I opened my email. I searched for MidFirst Bank. There it was. Your Q3 statement is ready? I opened the PDF. It was not a statement. It was a notice for a HELOC. A home equity line of credit. My eyes scanned the numbers, my brain processing them like code. Account number. Borrower Mark Grant. Eliza Grant. Total line of credit $500,000. Current balance due $350,000. $421. Date of last disbursement. 3 months ago. $350,000. I never signed that. I was never at a bank. I never saw a document, never held a pen. Where was my signature? A single, icy thought formed in my mind. It was so cold and sharp it felt like a physical object in my skull. He had used my house. He had forged my name. He had taken the one solid thing I had, the legacy from my grandmother, and he had cashed it in to fund this new life. He was leveraging my past to pay for his future. I put the phone down. I looked at the champagne bottle. I thought about driving to the 35th floor and using that bottle to smash every piece of glass in their new office. I thought about driving to Aspen. No, that was an emotional response. That was chaos. I build systems. I manage outcomes. He had given me a blueprint. I saw the entire project plan of his deceit, the financial infrastructure, the timeline, the fraudulent documentation, the co-conspirators. I started the engine. The Audi's purr was quiet, efficient. I was not going to destroy his life. I was going to use his own meticulous, fraudulent design to ensure he had nothing left to destroy. He thought he was a builder. I was about to show him what a controlled demolition looked like. I did not drive home. Home was not a safe location. Home was a liability, a compromised asset. I drove through the 5 o'clock traffic, my hands steady on the wheel. My route recalculated. I was not going to my house. I was going to the offices of Marianne Davies. Davies & Caney is not the kind of firm you call when your marriage is drifting apart. It is the firm you call when your marriage is a multi-million-dollar financial crime scene. Davies is a legend, a woman known to eviscerate corporate husbands in court. I had sent her firm a client referral from my own company 2 years ago. She owed me a meeting. Her 40th floor office was silent, a hushed temple of mahogany and glass overlooking the darkening city. Her assistant, seeing the look on my face, wisely showed me straight in. Marianne Davies was in her 60s, impeccably dressed, and had the cold, assessing eyes of a predator. She looked up from a stack of files, her expression unreadable. I walked to her desk. I placed the bottle of Dom Perignon on the wood. It was warm now, the label damp from my grip. "I need a divorce," I said. My voice was as flat and cold as the glass wall behind her. "But before that, I want criminal charges." She looked at the champagne, then at me. She did not ask if I was okay. She did not offer condolences. She gestured to the chair opposite her. "Present." I sat. I did not cry. I did not rage. I opened my laptop, set it on her desk, and turned it for her to see. I had already prepared the evidence. I treated it like a project report, a catastrophic failure analysis. "Project Surprise Husband," I began. "Status complete failure, root cause, deceit, and conspiracy." I showed her the first exhibit, the screenshot I had taken of the digital directory in the lobby. Grant Vance Strategies. I moved to the next, the photo of the launch party. Mark, Serena, my mother, my father, my sister. "This is the core team of the opposing party," I said. I opened the next file. "Financials I have pulled the last 6 months of our joint account statements." I highlighted the massive withdrawals. 10,000, 25,000, 50,000, all labeled biz expense. "And this," I said, opening the final PDF, "is the kill shot." I showed her the HELOC statement. $350,000 drawn against my grandmother's house, a house I owned free and clear before our marriage, until I stupidly added his name to the deed 10 years ago. I pointed to the disbursement date. 3 months ago. I have never seen this document. I have never signed this document. Davies was silent. She stared at the screen, her head tilted. Then she looked up at me. She was not sympathetic. She was impressed. "He forged your signature on a federal mortgage application," she stated. It was not a question. "This is not a divorce, Ms. Grant. This is bank fraud. This is a federal crime." She swiveled in her chair and tapped a few keys on her own computer. "We are pulling the official property records from the clerk's office. Now." In less than 90 seconds, the file was on her screen. The official HELOC deed. And there, at the bottom, was my signature. My perfect, clean, digital signature. "It is a scan," I said. "It is a high-quality scan," she corrected. "Probably lifted from our tax returns. It is a digital forgery. And it is obvious." She picked up her desk phone. "Sarah, get me Peterson. The document examiner. Tell him it is a priority file. I am sending the PDFs over now." She hung up and looked at me. "He will confirm it is a forgery within 3 hours. We will have a sworn affidavit by morning." "Good," I said. "When can we freeze his assets? The joint account, the new company. I want him cut off. Now." Davies held up one perfectly manicured hand. "We will not freeze his assets. Not yet. We," she said, gesturing between us, "are the victims of a domestic dispute. But the bank is the victim of a $350,000 federal fraud. We are going to let the bank do it for us. They have more lawyers, more power, and zero emotional attachment. They will crush him to protect themselves." I nodded. That was a sound strategic plan. "I need one more thing. I need to know where every single cent went." "You need a forensic accountant," she finished, already writing a name and number on a thick, cream-colored business card. "Mr. Patel. He is the best. He once found $500,000 hidden in a World of Warcraft account. Call him tonight. Tell him it is a Davies file." I stood up. I took the card. "Thank you for your time." "Ms. Grant," she said, as I turned to leave. I stopped. "The champagne," she said, nodding at the bottle on her desk. "A lovely choice. But next time, bring it chilled. We will drink it when this is over." I left her office at 8 p.m. I did not go home. I drove to a downtown high-rise, a sleek, anonymous building offering corporate leases. I used my personal company credit card, the one Mark knew nothing about, and rented a fully furnished penthouse. 6 months, paid in full. An operational expense for my new project, the complete dismantling of Mark Grant. Only then, close to midnight, did I drive to my house, my grandmother's house. It was dark. His car was not there. He was still in Aspen, living in his new beginning. I walked inside. Everything was as we had left it. His golf clubs by the door, his whiskey bottles on the bar. I felt nothing. I went upstairs to the master bedroom. I took my largest suitcase. I packed 3 of my best suits, my running gear, my laptop, my backup hard drives, and my toiletries. I went to the safe hidden behind the painting in our study. I took my passport, my birth certificate, and the box of old, faded photographs of my grandmother. I left everything else. The clothes he bought me, the jewelry he gave me, the life we had built. I left my wedding ring on the nightstand, right next to a freshly printed copy of the Hellock Statement. I walked out the front door, closed it, and did not look back. My new penthouse was a sterile, white box, 40 floors above the city. It was an excellent place to conduct a war. From this command center, I communicated with my team. Marianne Davies handled the legal framework. Mr. Patel, the forensic accountant, was my intelligence unit. I met him in a bland coffee shop, feeding him data from my encrypted hard drive. He was a small, quiet man with intense eyes behind thick glasses. He did not care about the drama, he only cared about the numbers. "The joint account is a start," he'd said, sipping black tea. "But to find the real rot, I need access to his business accounts. Grant Consulting." "I do not have access," I said. "He was moving money from your joint account. He was sloppy. He created a digital handshake. I can follow it." Patel replied. He took my laptop. "I will call you in 24 hours. He called in 12. "Meet me. Same place." When I arrived, he had a flowchart printed on a single, massive piece of paper, covering the entire table. "Your husband's company, Grant Consulting, is a phantom," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. He pointed to a box on the chart. "It has no legitimate clients. It has no revenue. It is a shell corporation, a bucket. But he was always busy. He was always closing deals." Patel pointed to another box, labeled Eliza Grant, payroll deposit, and then drew a red line from it to the Grant Consulting bucket. "For the last 2 years, Ms. Grant, you have been his only client. He set up an automated transfer from your joint account, the one your salary goes into, to his shell account, a few $1,000s, every week. He coded it as a management fee. You were funding your own deception. The entire company was financed by you. The room felt small, airless. I had been paying for the suits he wore to meet his mistress. I paid for the business lunches. I paid for the charade. "It gets worse," Patel said, his voice flat. He could see the storm on my face, but, like a good analyst, reported the data anyway. "He used your money as seed capital, but he needed a bigger injection of cash to launch this new venture with Miss Vance. The $350,000 HELOC was part of that, but it was not the only part." He slid a thin stack of printed emails across the table. I gained access to his Grant Consulting email server. He was not just lying to you. He was lying to her family. I read the emails. They were between Mark and a Robert Vance, Serena's father. My stomach turned. It was a con, a full-on professional con. Mark had presented himself to the Vance family as a wealthy, successful consultant, trapped in a dying marriage. "My wife is a workaholic," he had written to Robert Vance. "She is a wonderful woman, but she is married to her job. We are agreeing to an amicable divorce. The only asset is our home, which I own. It has millions in equity that I am in the process of unlocking." He had sent them a copy of the fraudulent HELOC application as proof of his financial standing. Based on that lie, Robert Vance had agreed to invest $200,000, Patel said, pointing to a wire transfer receipt, from Robert Vance to Grant Vance Strategies, 1 week after the HELOC was funded. Serena was not a gold digger, not really. She and her entire family were just his second-stage investors. They were victims, too. The full, horrifying project plan was suddenly clear. I saw the timeline in my head. Phase 1. Siphon salary from Eliza to build a consulting legend. Phase 2. Forge HELOC documents to steal $350,000 from Eliza's house. Phase 3. Use the fraudulent HELOC as leverage to trick the Vance family into investing $200,000. Phase 4. Launch the new company using the combined $550,000. Phase 5. Before Eliza noticed the HELOC, use the Vance money to pay it off, clearing the lien. Phase 6. Serve Eliza with divorce papers, demand a 50% split of the shared house, and walk away with millions. I looked at Mr. Patel. The feeling inside me was not sadness or anger. It was a cold, profound disgust. Mark was not an adulterer who got in over his head. He was not a man who made a mistake. He was a professional. I looked at the stack of emails. The conversations between Mark and Robert Vance detailed the entire fraudulent premise of their investment. "This," I said, tapping the emails, "is not just for the divorce." "No," Patel agreed. "That is interstate wire fraud. I need pristine, certified copies of all of it," I said. "Every email, every transfer, every receipt. This was not about a broken heart. This was about leverage. This was about ensuring that when I moved my pieces on the board, he would have nowhere left to run." I was sitting at the glass dining table in the penthouse, my laptop open, reviewing the flowcharts from Mr. Patel. It was 9 p.m. The city lights glittered below, a sea of silent, indifferent diamonds. My phone lit up on the table. The caller ID was Megan, my sister. A cold, heavy stillness settled in the room. They were in Aspen. They were celebrating. Why was she calling me? I let it ring 3 times. I took a sip of water. I accessed the call recording app on my phone, a standard tool I used for my project meetings. I pressed record. Then I answered. "Hello, Megan." "Eliza, hi." Her voice was a grotesque parody of cheerfulness. It was too loud, too high, pitched for a party I was not invited to. "Hey, sis, I was just calling to check in. How's work?" "Work is fine, Megan," I said. My voice was monotone, a flat line. "Busy." "Oh, good, good. We're just so busy here, too." I could hear the clinking of glasses in the background, a murmur of voices, faint music. A party. They were still at a party. "How is the trip?" I asked, keeping my voice level. I saw Mark's itinerary. Looked like a big conference. I put a slight, questioning emphasis on the word. There was a half-second of silence. A tiny, almost imperceptible falter. Oh, yes, it's amazing. The conference is just incredible. So much networking. And the snow, Eliza. Oh my God, the snow is just beautiful. Mark was so amazing to bring the whole family along. He's so generous. The whole family, I repeated. Mom and Dad, too. That's nice. Yes, they're having so much fun. We're just so proud of him. Eliza, you should be, too. You should be, too. The condescension was thick, dripping with her assumed superiority. She was on the inside. I was the cold, boring, workaholic wife on the outside. It sounds wonderful, I said. It must be incredibly expensive. That hotel, the ski passes, flying everyone out. I am impressed. How on earth is his new company affording all of that? It was a simple, logical question, a project manager's question, a question about budget. Megan laughed again, but this time the sound was strained, brittle. Oh, Mark business is it's booming. Eliza, this new partnership, it's huge. We're all just so proud of what he's building. There it was. The lie. The rehearsed, agreed-upon script. Business is booming. The same lie he had been feeding me. The same lie my entire family was now complicit in. I decided to end the call. Are you proud he's mortgaging my house to pay for it? The silence on the line was no longer a pause. It was a vacuum, a vast, cold, empty space where a sister used to be. I heard a sharp intake of breath. I heard the music in the background. I heard her, completely, utterly silent. Then, a click. She hung up. I stared at the phone. I did not feel anger. I did not feel sadness. I felt a confirmation, a final data point. The last variable in a terrible equation had been solved. I had no family. My fingers moved with precision. I stopped the recording. I saved the audio file. I named it M. Grant Conspiracy Evidence Aspen. I opened my email. I attached the file. I sent it to Marianne Davies. Subject co-conspirator number 1. Body audio proof of my sister's complicity. She is aware of the fraudulent premise and is actively participating in the deception. Please add to the file. I sent the email. Then, I made one more call. I scrolled through my contacts, past father, past mother. I stopped at Chloe, my best friend, my friend since college, the one person who had never been part of the poisonous, transactional world of my family. She answered on the second ring. Hey, I was just about to… What's wrong? She could hear it in my silence. I did not have the energy for the whole story. I just gave her the executive summary. Chloe, I said, and my voice finally cracked. Just once. A tiny fracture in the ice. He did it. Mark. He did it. What did he do? She asked, her voice dropping. All business. What do I need to do? He did it all. He's a con man. He's been stealing from me for years. He forged my name on a $350,000 loan against my house to start a new company with his intern. I took a breath. And my family. Chloe. My family. They're with him. They're in Aspen. Celebrating. They helped him. The silence on Chloe's end was different from Megan's. It was not guilt. It was fury. Where are you? She said. It was not a question. It was a command. I'm at a corporate penthouse downtown. I can't go home. I am on my way, Chloe said. Do not move. I am bringing wine, the good kind, and a lawyer, my brother's firm, just in case Davies isn't as good as they say she is. I have Davies, I said. Good. Then I am just bringing wine, and glasses, and a plan. I will be there in 15 minutes. She hung up. I sat in the dark. I had lost a husband, a mother, a father, and a sister, But I had a team, and I had a friend. The project was still on track. I could not simply destroy the house. As satisfying as the thought of arson was, it was impractical. Mark's name was on the deed. A decade-old mistake born of naive trust. That meant my revenge could not be emotional. It had to be procedural. It had to be legal. It had to be surgical. I met Davies at her office the next morning. It was Tuesday. 48 hours had passed since I saw the photograph in the lobby. I had not slept. I had only planned. Mr. Patel's complete forensic report was printed. The document examiner's affidavit, confirming the signature forgery, was notarized. We were ready. Davies called her strategy scorched earth. I preferred my own term, controlled demolition. We will proceed in 3 phases, she said, her desk already clear for the day's work. Phase 1. We file. She slid the finalized divorce petition across the desk. It was thick. I signed it. We were not citing irreconcilable differences. We were citing adultery, gross financial malfeasance, conspiracy to commit fraud, and bank fraud. The petition was filed electronically at 9:01 a.m. Phase 2, she continued, is the bank. This was the masterstroke. We were not calling the police. Not yet. The police were a blunt instrument. We were contacting the bank's senior vice president of the high-level fraud and asset protection division. Davies had his private number. We did not just report the crime. We presented the bank with a finished, undeniable, and deeply embarrassing case. We provided my sworn affidavit. We provided the notarized expert analysis proving the digital forgery of my signature. And we provided the kill shot the certified copies of Mark's emails to Robert Vance, detailing his plan to leverage the fraudulent HELOC to secure their $200,000 investment. We proved, in black and white, that MidFirst Bank was currently exposed to a $350,000 loss based on a fraudulent instrument. We also proved that those funds were actively being commingled with a third-party investment bordering on interstate wire fraud. The bank's response was not emotional. It was corporate, it was immediate, and it was brutal. A corporation facing a massive liability does not get sad, it gets efficient. At 11:03 a.m., an internal alert froze the $350,000 line of credit. At 11:04 a.m., they froze the primary recipient account, the Grant Vance Strategies corporate account. Every dollar, including the Vance's $200,000, was locked pending investigation. At 11:05 a.m., as a precaution against further contamination, they froze the source account of the fraud, our joint checking account. While the bank was erecting its firewalls, I was completing Phase 3 financial separation. I had already been to my own company's HR department. My paycheck, effective immediately, was no longer deposited into the compromised joint account. It was routed to a new, private, ironclad trust account that Davies had established. My income stream was secure. I was financially insulated. The explosion happened at approximately 1:15 p.m., Mountain Time. I know, because I pictured it. I pictured Mark, Serena, and my treacherous family sitting down for a celebratory lunch at some overpriced restaurant in Aspen. They would be laughing, toasting their new beginnings, high on the thrill of their success. I pictured Mark, expansive and arrogant, grabbing the check. I pictured him pulling out the Grant Vance Strategies corporate black card. And I pictured the waiter returning, his expression apologetic. "I'm sorry, sir. This card has been declined." He would be annoyed, not yet scared. He would try his personal debit card, linked to our joint account. Declined. He would try the HELOC card. Declined. He was in Aspen. He had no cash. He had no access to the $550,000 he thought he controlled. He had no way to pay the hotel bill. He had no way to buy plane tickets home. He was trapped, 2 states away, with his mistress and my parasitic family, and he was, for the first time in his life, utterly and completely broke. The demolition was not finished. Davies called me at 4 p.m. The bank was not just protecting itself, it was now on the offensive. "They are furious," Davies said. and I heard the rare sound of satisfaction in her voice. "This fraud invalidates the entire loan agreement. They are accelerating the loan." Accelerating. The loan is due in full, immediately. Since Mr. Grant obviously cannot repay $350,000, they are exercising their right to seize the collateral. My grandmother's house. They are initiating non-judicial foreclosure proceedings, citing the fraud clause in the contract. She continued. "It is fast, very fast." "How fast?" I asked, looking out the penthouse window at the city. "The house will be sold at public auction on the steps of the county courthouse." "When?" "In 10 days. The clock was set. The house, the asset he had used to destroy me, would be liquidated, his name, his claim, and his presence would be legally burned away. The surgery was on schedule. I was in the penthouse, 3 days later, reviewing the auction prospectus. The foreclosure was moving at lightning speed. The bank, it turned out, was a far more vindictive partner than I could have ever hoped for. My building's intercom buzzed. The front desk. "Ms. Grant, there is a Mr. Grant here to see you. He says he's your father." I stood. My heart did not race. It was just another task on the list. "Send him up." I opened the penthouse door before he knocked. He stood in the hallway, looking utterly broken. He was not the proud, boisterous man from the photograph. He looked 100 years old. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes were bloodshot, and he smelled faintly of airport linoleum and stale fear. "They left me at the airport," he said. His voice was a dry, papery thin rasp. "At DIA, they just left me." I did not speak. I did not invite him in. I simply stood in the doorway, blocking his path. "Mark." He couldn't pay the hotel bill. He rambled, his hands twisting a worn baggage claim tag. The cards, none of them worked. He started screaming. He screamed at Serena. He screamed at your mother. He screamed at Megan. He said it was all their fault, that they had pushed him too fast. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. It was a mess. The hotel security. They had to call them. "Why are you here?" I asked. My voice was as cold as the marble floor. He flinched. He promised us, Eliza. He promised us each $50,000 when the divorce settlement was finalized. He said you'd be reasonable. He was going to pay you $50,000 of my own money. It was a statement, not a question. Your mother and Megan, they agreed right away. They said you'd hoarded the family money long enough. They said it was their turn. And you, Dad. Tears finally welled in his eyes, hot and pathetic. I just wanted a little security. Eliza, my pension. It's gone. I'm broke. I just wanted a little peace." I looked at this man, the man who taught me to ride a bike, the man who walked me down the aisle and gave me to Mark. He had sold me, his own daughter, for the price of a mid-range sedan. "Why are you here?" I repeated, my voice harder this time. "He's on his way back. They're on a bus. Eliza. A bus. He called me from a rest stop. He said he's coming for you. He said he's going to make you sell the house. He said you can't stop him. Eliza, you have to help me. He's crazy. Help you. He's going to tell the bank I was in on it. I'll lose everything. Eliza, please." He was not here for me. He was here for himself. He was a rat, fleeing a ship he had helped sink, and he was trying to climb onto my lifeboat. "Give me a reason," I said. "Give me one reason why I should not let Mark, and the bank, and the entire federal government tear you apart." He fumbled. He reached inside his wrinkled suit jacket, his hand shaking violently. He pulled out a folded sheaf of papers. "I took this," he whispered, pressing it into my hand. I grabbed it from his briefcase at the hotel, while he was screaming at the front desk. I looked down. It was thick, legal-sized paper. The title at the top made my blood freeze, then burn. Business covenant and profit-sharing agreement. It was a contract, a meticulously drafted, signed, and notarized contract. It was not between Mark and the Vances. It was between Mark, my mother, my father, and my sister, Megan. It detailed, in precise legal language, the entire plan. It outlined Mark's strategy to leverage the primary marital asset, my house, to secure funding. It explicitly detailed his plan to compel a sale of the property post-divorce. It then outlined the profit distribution from the sale, including the $50,000 payments to each of my family members for their strategic support and counsel during the transition. It was not just a smoking gun. It was a signed confession of a criminal conspiracy. It was proof that my family were not just passive observers. They were active, contracted co-conspirators in a plot to defraud me. I looked up from the document at my father's terrified face. I folded the papers neatly and stepped back, away from him. "I will not help you," I said, my voice quiet and final. "You made your choice. But this may have just saved you from a federal indictment. Your testimony, in exchange for this evidence, might be worth something to the district attorney." He looked confused. "But, Eliza, what about Mark?" "He's coming." "I know. I'm counting on it." I closed the penthouse door in his face, leaving him alone in the hallway. I turned around, walked to my laptop, and immediately scanned the document. I emailed it to Marianne Davies. Subject: the final piece. Body: my father just delivered this. It's a signed confession. Game over. The day of the auction was cold and bright, the kind of Denver morning that feels like a slap in the face. I arrived at the county courthouse at 10 a.m. I was not there as Eliza Grant, the grieving wife. I was there as an observer, a project manager watching the final phase of a demolition. I stood at the very back of the crowd assembled on the stone steps, my face hidden behind large, black sunglasses, a wool hat pulled low over my hair. Marianne Davies was not with me. She was 3 feet away, standing in the designated bidders section, holding a numbered paddle. She was not representing me. She was representing Summit Properties, LLC, a shell corporation I had formed 48 hours prior, funded by a clean, untraceable transfer from my new trust account. This was the most painful, critical part of the plan. To save my house, I had to lose it. I had to let the bank, the victim of Mark's fraud, foreclose. I had to let it go to public auction. It was the only way to legally, permanently, and absolutely sever Mark's name from the deed. It was the only way to wash the title clean of his $350,000 fraudulent lien. The sale would pay off the bank, and any remaining equity would be fought over in divorce court, but with the conspiracy contract my father had given me, Mark would not see a dime. The auctioneer, a fast-talking man in a parka, started the proceedings. He rattled off the legal description, the address, my grandmother's house, reduced to a lot number and a case file. "We'll open the bidding for this property at $800,000, he barked. My heart, which I thought had turned to stone, gave a painful, violent kick. A man in a Carhartt jacket, clearly a developer, raised his hand. $850. Another developer. $900. Davies, my lawyer, was silent. We had a plan. We would let the bottom feeders tire themselves out. This was a $2 million property. Even with the accelerated auction, the price climbed. $950. $1 million. 1.1. The developers started to grumble, shaking their heads. They were looking for a flip, not a real investment. At $1.2 million, Davies raised her paddle. $1.3, she said, her voice calm, bored. The first developer dropped out. The second one countered. $1.35. Davies, without blinking. $1.4. The auctioneer pointed. $1.4 from our registered bidder. Do I hear $1.5? Silence. The developer shook his head and stepped back. Going once? The auctioneer called. Going twice. We have a phone bid. A woman on the side, a courthouse clerk, shouted. Phone bidder is at 1.5 million. I tensed. Who was this? Another developer. Davies raised her paddle. 1.6. Phone bidder is at 1.7. The clerk called out, her ear pressed to her receiver. This was not a developer. This was not a random bidder. This was someone with specific, deep-pocketed interest. Davies looked back at me, a tiny, almost imperceptible glance. I gave her no sign. We were still on plan. 1.8, Davies said. So, phone bidder at 1.9. My blood ran cold. I knew, with the sickening certainty of a project manager seeing a critical dependency fail, exactly who that was. It was Robert Vance. He was not there to help me. He was not a new enemy. He was Mark's original enemy. He was the man Mark had conned out of $200,000. This was his and my only asset to claim. He was trying to recoup his loss. He was trying to take my grandmother's house to pay for my husband's sins. The arrogance was breathtaking. He had seen the foreclosure notice Mark's asset was being liquidated, and he had decided to take it for himself. 2 million, Davies said, her voice like ice. Phone bidder at 2.1 million. The clerk shouted. He was not backing down. He was trying to push me out, to take the house for pennies on its true worth. I would not let him. I would not let this collateral damage from Mark's life take the last thing I had. The price was now at 2.3 million. My lawyer looked at me again. This was over our pre-approved budget. This was no longer a financial transaction. This was war. I looked at Davies. I gave one sharp, decisive nod. When? 2.4 million? Davies called out. The phone clerk was listening intently. The crowd was silent. Phone bidder is at 2.45. 2.5, Davies snapped before the auctioneer could even speak. A long, agonizing pause. The clerk was talking into the phone. She shook her head. The phone bidder is out. The air rushed back into my lungs. The auctioneer, sensing the finale, raised his gavel. 2.5 million from Summit Properties. Going once, going twice, sold for $2,500,000 to Summit Properties, LLC. I did not stay to hear the gavel. I did not stay to watch Davies sign the papers. I turned and walked away, pulling my sunglasses down. I had just bought my own house. The demolition was complete. The fraudulent loan was gone, paid in full to the bank. Mark's name was gone, erased by the legal power of the foreclosure he had caused. The house was mine, and mine alone, sheltered in the anonymous armor of a corporation, just waiting for him to come home. I knew they were returning tomorrow. Chloe, my brilliant, beautiful, and terrifyingly efficient friend, had a source, a disgruntled former employee in the Aspen Travel Agency. Their plane tickets home, the first-class seats Mark had booked, had been non-refundable, paid for from the frozen Grant Vance account. They were worthless. They were on a bus, a 16-hour, overnight, diesel-fumed journey from the peaks of Aspen to the reality of Denver. Mark, Serena, my mother, and Megan, trapped together in a cramped public humiliation with nothing but truck stop coffee and the full dawning horror of their situation. I spent the entire day in the house. My house. The locks had been changed at 8 a.m. At 9 a.m., the movers arrived. They were not a standard moving company. They were a specialized asset relocation team, the kind used for contentious divorces and seizures. I walked them through the empty halls, my voice echoing slightly. I was a project manager on a final walkthrough. This, I said, pointing to the massive gray linen sofa we had bought together, is a shared asset. Inventory it, photograph it, move it to the secure storage unit. This, I said, pointing to his entire wardrobe, is his personal property. Inventory, photograph, store. His golf clubs, the $10,000 home theater system, the ugly, modern art he had insisted on, the bed we had shared, every pot, every pan, every glass from which he had drunk my wine. Gone. 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 They worked for 6 hours. They were fast, silent, and respectful. When they were finished, the house was empty. It was not a home. It was a shell. It was a stage. All that remained was what had always been mine. My grandmother's heavy mahogany dining table, which had seen 100 years of family dinners, long before he existed, her collection of framed botanical prints, and in the hallway, the tall, dark wood grandfather clock. The house was vast now, scoured clean. The air smelled of lemon oil and opportunity. I stood in the center of the living room, the late afternoon sun streaming through the bare windows, illuminating the perfect, clean, empty hardwood floors. It was beautiful. It was mine. My phone rang, an unknown number with a Colorado Springs area code. I answered. Ms. Grant. The voice was clipped, deep, and hostile. This is Robert Vance. I waited. I believe we have a common adversary, he said, the words tight with anger. That man conned my family. He took $200,000 based on fraudulent representation. He was the man who had tried to outbid me for my own home. He was the man who had funded his daughter's affair. I am prepared to see him prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Vance continued. My daughter, Serena, she is distraught. She sees now how he manipulated her. She is willing to testify, in full. She will tell the court, the police, anyone, that it was all his idea. He was offering me his daughter as a sacrifice. He was trying to build an alliance, to cut his losses, to paint his little girl as a victim instead of a co-conspirator. He was just another man trying to make a deal, trying to control the narrative. He still thought I was a pawn in his game. I hung up the phone. I did not need his help. I did not need his tainted testimony. I had the signed conspiracy contract from my father. I had the bank. I had the receipts. I did not need allies. I had the truth. I walked to the empty kitchen, the sound of my heels clicking on the tile. I had brought 2 things with me when I arrived that morning. A bucket of cleaning supplies and a single chilled bottle of champagne. A new one. I popped the cork. The sound was a sharp, satisfying explosion in the empty house. I poured myself a single glass. I returned to the living room and sat on the floor, my back against the clean white wall. I looked at the front door. I waited. The house was silent, completely, beautifully silent. The only sound was the steady, heavy, rhythmic ticking of my grandmother's clock in the hall. Tick, tock, tick, tock. It was counting down. It was just after 8 p.m. when the headlights of a beat-up, dirty white Prius cut through the darkness. The Uber pulled to a jerky stop at the curb. The doors opened, and they spilled out, one by one, like clowns in a tragedy. First, my mother, her hair flat, her face a mask of pinched rage. Then Megan, looking sullen and exhausted, her cheap-looking bag slung over her shoulder. Then Serena, her aspen tan completely overshadowed by the tear tracks on her face. And finally, Mark. He looked terrible. His expensive suit was rumpled beyond recognition. His face was gray with stubble and fatigue, and he moved with the angry, jerky motions of a man who had been pushed too far. They were all carrying their own luggage. They looked tired, filthy, and furious. Mark looked up at the house. He saw my Audi in the garage. I heard his voice, a low growl carrying across the lawn. What the hell is she doing in my house? He stormed up the walkway, the 3 women trailing behind him like a defeated, bickering army. He shoved his key into the new, gleaming brass lock set. It did not go in. He tried again, jamming it, his shoulder thudding against the wood. What the? He rattled the knob, a useless, violent gesture. Then he pounded, a full, 2-fisted, animalistic slam against the solid wood. Eliza, open this door. Open the goddamn door right now. What the hell is wrong with you? I let him pound one more time, just to be sure he had everyone's attention. Then I opened the door. I stood there, holding my crystal champagne flute, the liquid bubbling lightly. I smiled, a wide, bright, genuine smile. They all froze, all four of them, staring at me from the darkness of the porch. Then their eyes moved past me, into the vast, empty, echoing foyer. I saw their faces shift from anger to a deep, profound, and sudden confusion. My mother was the first to speak, her voice a shrill shriek. The furniture. Where is the furniture, Eliza? What did you do? Mark, I said, my voice sweet, light, and perfectly calm. You dropped some mail. I stepped forward, and they all flinched back, as if I were holding a weapon. I held out 2 documents. On top was the bright, garish red and white Notice of Public Foreclosure Sale. Beneath it was a crisp, new deed of ownership. He snatched them from my hand. He stared at the foreclosure notice, his brain clearly unable to process the words. Then he saw the second document. What? What is this? He stammered, his eyes scanning the page. Summit Properties. What? Who is Summit Properties? That, I said, taking a small, delicate sip of my champagne, is what is known as a controlled demolition. Mark. The house was sold at a public auction. Yesterday. I let the words hang in the cold night air. It was sold, I continued, to pay off the $350,000 loan you took out by forging my signature. You can't, he roared. It was a primal, wounded sound. This is my house, you can't. He lunged. He moved so fast, his hands clawed, aiming for my throat. He did not make it 2 feet. I would not do that. Mr. Grant! Mary Ann Davies stepped out from the archway of the empty dining room. She was not alone. 2 uniformed, very large police officers stepped out with her, their hands resting on their belts. Mark stopped, stumbling, his lunge collapsing into a pathetic shuffle. His eyes went wide. Mark Grant, one of the officers said, his voice booming in the empty house. You are under arrest for bank fraud and conspiracy to commit fraud. As the officer grabbed Mark's arm and spun him around, forcing his hands behind his back, the beautiful sound of metal ratcheting filled the air. The cuffs clicked shut. That is when Serena finally found her voice. It was not a plea. It was a scream. You told me you had money. She shrieked at Mark's cuffed back. You told me you were rich. You lied to me. You lied about everything. Mark, his face pressed against the wall, twisted to look at her. His face was a mask of pure, unadulterated horror, the final realization. His partner, his new beginning, his blessed life was just another con, turning on its master. My project was complete. I looked past the scene of the arrest. I looked past my husband. My gaze landed, finally, on my mother and my sister. They were huddled together by the porch railing, backing away, their faces pale with terror. They looked small. They looked irrelevant. You 2 look cold, I said, raising my glass in a mock toast. I took one last, long sip of champagne. You should have brought jackets. I stepped back, inside my house, and I slammed the heavy oak door in their faces. The final, satisfying click of the lock echoed in the empty hall, punctuated only by the fading wail of a police siren and the steady, triumphant ticking of my grandmother's clock. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Please comment below and let me know where you are listening from. I would love to connect and hear your thoughts. Be sure to subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it a hype by hitting the button to help this story be heard by more people.